Okay, I wanted to give you a quick demo of the actual interface. This will help you when you start to practice with the simulation for the next few days before you have to run your final run. So just an idea of what's going on is I'm going to open up the simulation for a practice round. And during that practice round, you can run the simulation basically as many times as you want. And I strongly suggest that you make some extreme decisions and get fired, and then just reset the simulation and continue to run it to learn about what decisions not to make to better your odds of scoring well in the simulation, which is tied to your grade. What you can see now is what you typically already see, but up here on the tabs, you have basically 3 tabs you can use. The news is kind of just telling you where a few things are at. It'll help you a little bit with some overview. The analyze, which I'm going to go through in just a minute, and the decide, where you actually make all of your decisions. There's not a lot of decisions that you can impact to change, which is kind of nice about this sim. It's supposed to be, I think, more fun than anything, and my students every semester really do like it. And then these 3 dots, if I don't come back to it to remember, you can go through your archived plays or your decision history. So if you get a practice round that you score pretty well on, then you can go back and look at what your decisions were on it, save it, screenshot it, and use those for your final round. Typically, the highest scores are somewhere in the upper 70s for most of my classes. In terms of the actual score that you get, it's scored out of 100 on the simulation. So if you get yourself to the upper 70s, you're doing quite well on what I've seen in the past. So we're going to start with the Analyze tab. You'll have access to these tabs as soon as I open it, which is when I will post this video. And I'm just going to quickly and briefly give you an overview of important things to look at. When you run your decision, so here's your quarters. So you've got, like I said, about 12, 13 quarters that you're going to run. You're given 3 quarters of data, and well, I guess 2 quarters, 3 quarters, and you're going to start making decisions going forward. And if you finish out all of them, then you didn't get fired and you finished. But if you only get so far, it'll say that you've been let go and you just got to reset the simulation. So that's kind of what you've got, is kind of 12 quarters of play, or 2.5 years of decision making. Okay. So this dashboard here is the first screen you're going to come to after you make a decision. The dashboard is going to tell you how the large segments, how many more purchases you got, how your small segments, small customers did, what kind of market share you have, your revenue, how many unit sales did you make, your profit margins. This is really important, is if you lower prices too much, you could sell a lot but make a lot less money. Okay, where you're spending on features and your average prices. So just a good overview. And then each of these tabs across the top help you dig into a little bit more detail. And there's a couple of them that I really want to show you, but some that I'll just skim over. Again, by the way, what you're seeing here is your pricing, market or motion, and your competitors' pricing or your competitors' data. So you get to see a little bit about what your competitors are up to in comparison to what you're doing. During your practice rounds, take note as to what decisions your competitor makes based on decisions that you make. Okay, it'll be really helpful to you to know how your competitor reacts. Okay, customer purchases, just telling you each of the segments, sales, how much they're buying, financials is a financial report, which you can kind of, again, dig into on various levels. Okay, but this research tab is really important to note. Okay, this visualization of what's going on will be really helpful as you move forward. This dot here is you. And that's kind of essentially where you're sitting in the marketplace, okay, where you're at. And basically your previous CEO wasn't doing really well because you're sitting out here in kind of no man's land. You're kind of not really doing great for anyone. You're a little bit more geared towards segment A, which is why you've got a little bit more market share, but you're definitely not towards B, you're not towards D, and you're not towards C. And if you animate, you can see over the last just couple of decisions, which you didn't make, you haven't really moved anywhere. So what you're trying to do is get this dot to become, more targeted towards one of these audiences, one of these different segments. So based on decisions that you'll make, this dot will either move in one or many directions, depending on those decisions. So you'll get to watch that animate as you make more and more decisions. Okay, you can do that for large and small customers, kind of seeing where you're positioning yourself in the marketplace. But there's something else that's really important to keep note of this, that you can view this information as data, which is really great to kind of see when you spend on marketing research, you can actually see what each customer segment is looking at. So let's look at battery life, right? So the bigger the number, the better the battery life. And this desired means this is what each of the customer segments desire that number to be. So A right now is looking for battery life to be about 6.04, which means they close to C, they care a lot about it. C cares the most, 6.82. B doesn't care a lot about battery life, and segment D doesn't really care either. And here's where you're at. This is where your actual number is. So if you spend more on battery life, you'll actually see this number get closer to, or at least go up, okay? Sensor size. If you spend on sensor size, it actually goes down, okay? So you're actually trying to get a smaller sensor size. And same thing on latency. You want less latency, okay? But there is an inverse relationship that if you spend on sensor size, it does hurt your battery life because the smaller sensor size uses more battery. So just keep that in mind if you see that happening, okay? But what's really interesting and valuable is this information here. Keep in mind desired and actual. So this is the desired pricing for A. This is the actual pricing. That's what you're pricing A at. This is B's desired. This is what you're pricing them. This is what C is willing to pay. Here's where you're pricing. So you're actually quite under what C is willing to pay. And here's what D is willing to pay. And you're quite a bit above what D is willing to pay. So your goal is to obviously position yourself for one or two of these segments and try to maximize your revenue and your profitabilities in as many segments as you can. I say one or two because the whole concept of this game is to know that you can't be everything to everyone, and you're going to have to struggle a little bit, okay? So keep that in mind. That's right here on the data versus graph view to help you with your market research data. Okay, performance, that'll show you how you're doing in general. Customer satisfaction, which is 25% of your grade in the scoring. This tab will tell you these data, this kind of satisfaction levels will change. They'll give you information here. And this information will tell you a little bit about how they're feeling. Some segments want more salespeople. They want more interactions. Some segments don't care about salespeople. They just want better product quality. You'll have to figure all that out based on the information that you'll get in the customer satisfaction. Okay, and then of course, how your sales force is doing and where they're dedicating their time. That's all on the Analyze tab. That's the results that you'll look over as you make your decisions. So let's go through the things, the levers that you can pull, decisions that you can make, okay? So you have a direct sales force for the large segments. There's 4 of them, and you can allocate their time as you wish, right? So if we think segment A really wants our time, we can increase it to 50. Obviously, that means we have to reduce the amount of time we spend somewhere else. So we might go down like this, and there we go. So now we're going to spend a lot with A, spend nothing with D, and a little bit less with B and C. So that's how we can allocate our sales force. We can change our pricing, okay? And we change the discounts here. So if I raise my pricing to say 150, I turn my number lock on, there we go. Then these prices will change based on the discount. Obviously, this changes over here. I can change how much I give to distributors in terms of percentage and net customer. So I've raised the price here just for just showing you how you can do that, but you can change your discounts. You can't discount more than 20%, but you'll learn that as you go to give the pricing for your different segments, okay? The next thing you have is your sales team. So you've got 11 salespeople. You can fire and hire at will. The more you do, obviously, the more training you need. You can decide how much time you spent with small customers versus large customers. So depending on how you want to be and position yourself in the segment, how much do you spend on keeping customers and how much do you spend on new customers? Play with those numbers a little bit to see, how much you actually need to allocate in the different places. That's where you can kind of drive sales. Marketing budget. So integrated marketing communications and training. This will help your small customer group. This will help your sales team. This is kind of your marketing support. Anywhere between a 0 and 100,000 is a good number. They defaulted at 80,000. So based on where your budget at would be really good. Market research. So if you want access to that research tab that I kind of put a lot of emphasis on, that's your choice to spend on it or not. Social media persuasion spending. For right now, I would leave this out. and not spend on it, because there are some triggers that I can put into the simulation that trigger PR crisis and social media. I'm not going to do that, so I wouldn't worry too much. But the direct customer communication might be very valuable to you to help increase your brand awareness to your customers. So that's your marketing. Then finally, you have your product development, okay? So you can click on any of these eyes to help you, okay? And tell you a little bit about what they're doing in each of those, okay? So this is essentially spending to improve the quality of your product. So I'm going to, for example, I noticed that segment A really cared about battery life, so I'm going to raise that to 100,000. Okay, and sensor size, maybe some latency reduction spending. Okay, so after getting rid of some of my Salesforce, which saved me a lot of money, I've got a little bit of budget remaining. I don't have to spend all of my budget, and it's not a problem. But in this case, what I've done is I've changed a little bit of my segments. I've changed my list price. I've dropped some sales team. So I've made quite a few different decisions, and then all I do is hit submit and we see what happens. So we go into this and it looks like this was just not a good decision. Segment A, B, and C, and D all dropped. Small customers dropped. My profit margins dropped. That didn't seem to go too well. So I learned something not to do, which is what I'm doing in the practice runs. So I'll go through these tabs, see what I learn, come back to the decision tab, and run it again. Okay. And that's what you'll do. And you'll do that here. I won't make any changes. I'll submit some more. And wow, all of a sudden segment A loves us, and segment C and segment D. I didn't do anything different. And my profit margins are up. Well, that's a great win. So way to go me. So did something right. Let's look at my performance. So my battery life, killing it. And I think if we go into our research data, and it looks like our actual is jumping up quite well and getting closer to A's desired range. So why did A buy from us? Probably because even though we raised prices that first decision, we didn't raise them again, but we also got a little bit closer to what A is looking for in terms of battery life expectations. Okay, so let's not do anything and see what happens. Oh, we lost budget because we don't have as much money. So that can happen. You can get more budget and lose budget. So in this case that I lost 65,000, I'm just going to drop my sales team a little bit more because, sales doesn't do anything. And of course, looks like I got to get rid of my latency spending. And that breaks out my budget so I can keep going. Okay. So, all right. So C went up a little bit. A went up. D, profit margins are screaming. Wow, this is all good stuff. Maybe I just figured out the secret sauce right off the way, and that's all I need to do. So, okay, things seems to be starting to level off and drop. So if I maybe tweaked a few more decisions or did some differences, I could do really well. So I'm going to go back to the side and say, well, things have leveled off, but what if I just jack up everybody's prices a little bit more? That shouldn't make anybody upset, right? Yeah, that was not good. So people didn't like that. So I'm going to just, I lost more budget. Bummer. All right, no more feature spending. We don't have money for it. Things are not looking good. Margins are up because we're not spending on features. Feature spending went down to nothing. So now we're in trouble. But we can go, if you go to the research, right? So we should, based on where we've been spending on features, you can see our dot has definitely moved towards segment A. We've captured a little bit more market in segment A, but honestly, not as well as we could have done if we were making better decisions. And that's how the simulation will run. And you'll keep running through this until you either get fired or you finish, and hopefully you learn a few things and make some better decisions than I have and continue to increase your customer satisfaction, which you're graded on. You are graded on your market share, your revenue, and your profitability. So if I actually come back to the simulation, I will show you that. A little bit tricky how to go back into this. So you can see here right now I've got it set 25% of your grade satisfaction, 20% on market share, 30% on profit, and revenue is 25. So I'm going to drop customer satisfaction to 20, and I'm going to create market share up to 25. So more on market share, profit, and revenue, a little bit less on customer satisfaction. competitors' responses is slightly aggressive. You can be fired, no crazy events, and this is going to be called practice. And now I'm actually going to run it as simulation is open, which I'm setting right now, and you are now set to run. So you can now go into this and practice. The expectation is that you will have a number of practice rounds over the next few days. So I will put that in the email and make it clear that you've got about 4 or 5 days to run some practice rounds. I'm expecting to see at least 5, if not more. You have up to 30 or more if you need them. Just let me know if you run out. It's kind of a lot of fun. And I'm giving you, till about next Tuesday to run, maybe next Monday or Tuesday to run a number of these practice rounds. And then I'm going to give you just a day, because by then it should only take you about 30 minutes to run your final round and get that submitted. So I'll give you that warning of saying, hey, I'm going to clear all your practice rounds. Make sure you save any decisions you want to save. I'll clear them. You get one chance for one final run, and I'll reset the simulation to show that you get one run for your final attempt. Okay. So that's a little bit of the interface. I have a different video that I'm sharing with you that walks you through a little bit about what the simulation is trying to teach you. I think you should go through that. I hope you had before you see this one. But these two videos should help you get you off and running. And now the expectation is that you will spend time playing with this. If you are doing it as a group of 1, 2, or 3, we have learned that during the simulation, you are welcome to both log in. It seems like you can both log in at the same time, run separate simulations, and practice on your own. But when you get to the final run, you need to only run it one time as a group and work your decisions out together for your final run and your final score. If there's any questions on any of this, just let me know. But again, all of your decisions are done here on the decision tab. You'll know when you've been fired or when the simulations ends. Let me see if I can get myself fired. So I'm just going to jack up prices really good. And there we go, I got fired. So it's not been acceptable. We've decided that you can no longer continue. My score was a 44, market share, those type of things that I'm graded on. And here I can go and play again. It'll reset and start over. You are not playing against anyone else. You're just playing against the AI. You'll learn a little bit about that in the last video. Key things, again, in the practice rounds, make extreme decisions so that you can learn what not to do. And then in the final round, probably make some more marginal decisions, more managerial decisions, if you will, in slowly driving your company to success. Okay. So let me know if there's any questions, and I'm looking forward to see some of your guys' runs and have some fun with this. So take care.